what it is two disciplines coming together. So we have the discipline of understanding trauma and trauma-informed approaches in a therapeutic space. And from the investigation perspective, it's connecting, there are 3 decades of research into this from an investigative interviewing perspective and cognitive interviewing, predominantly out of the UK, a little bit out of the US as well. And certainly we've got some academics here in Australia that are leaders in the field in that space. So it's really joining those 2 groups of learning together. And so what does that mean in a practical sense? So in an investigation sense, it has 2 facets, I suppose you could say. If we look at the Respect at Work website that's just come out, there's a check sheet on that about how to have a trauma-informed approach in an interview, and it really talks about, that support and well-being of the person who's being interviewed and how maybe to help them in that environment. I think it goes a little bit further though, because the research out of the PTSD environment shows that trauma can affect memory recall and the processes of memory. And so from an evidentiary perspective, as an investigator, the investigator needs to understand how memory functions. And that's the cognitive interviewing space. So any investigator who has been trained and learnt about cognitive interviewing as a core function of or core part of that is understanding memory, how the process of memory works, how we record information, and then as an investigator and an interviewer, how to best enhance that memory recall by questioning techniques. But it's not just questioning techniques, it's environment, it's the environment of the interview, it's building rapport with the person that you're speaking to. And this actually is for, perpetrators or respondents in a workplace sense, as well as victims and complainants or witnesses. So it's joining those 2 together. And then from an evidentiary perspective, again, it's understanding when the investigator is interviewing someone, that if their responses aren't nice and in a linear fashion and nice and coherent from how they're providing their answers to the questions, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're lying or that they're lacking in credibility. It's the understanding of that they may have experienced some trauma, and that can come from both maybe what they've experienced that's being investigated, but also other aspects of their lives.